The kids of Elm Street don't know it yet, but something is coming to get them.
There's something out there, isn't there?
You could just see cuts happening.
What did that, Lieutenant?
I don't know.
Tina! What's the coroner got to say? He's in the John puking since he saw it.
They're gonna kill me for sure.
Did you do it?
There was somebody else there.
He was locked in a room with a girl who went in alive and came out in a rubber bag.
No one knows where it came from or who it will visit next.
Nancy? There's something wrong with you. You're imagining things.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Do you believe in the boogeyman?
No.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
No! No!
She's the only one who can stop it. If she fails,
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
no one will survive.
Help me, please! Where are you?
From Wes Craven, director of The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left, a new masterpiece in fantasy terror, Nightmare on Elm Street.
Had saved these clippings of the news story about some young men dying in the middle of severe nightmares. His father was a physician and had given him sleeping pills, and the kid supposedly was taking them, and they had come out of Southeast Asia war camps, so the family just assumed that he had been traumatized. And he said, no, it's different. There's something stalking me in my dream. I don't want to sleep. And he actually kept himself alive, or awake.
You didn't sleep at all last night, did you? You know, the doctor says you have to sleep or you'll go even crazier.
And finally he fell asleep, and the family, carried him up to his bed and put him to bed. And the accounts afterwards, we were all relieved and felt like finally he can rest and sleep. And they went to their own beds and then heard screaming and, thrashing, and they ran into his room. And he was just screaming, kicking on his bed. And by the time they got to him, he just fell silent and he was dead. And I just, then they found in his closet there was a coffee pot that he had hidden in there with black coffee, and they found all the sleeping pills. He hadn't taken any. And it was so dramatic. It was like, holy shit, this guy knew he was going to die if he slept. And you have to sleep.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
How terrifying is that?
Wes and I never could settle on an ending. Wes sort of thought I wanted Freddie driving the car because I wanted to have a sequel, but I wasn't even that sophisticated. So Wes and I continued to argue about this ending over and over and over. We had like 3 different endings that we shot. And we tested one, and then tested the other, and tested the third. None of them really were particularly satisfactory. What we finally decided to do, because different audiences had different points of view, is to end the film with all 3 endings.
I mean, the whole thing of Nightmare on Elm Street really was based on Eastern philosophy that I was studying at that time. Most of us are down, at the bottom level where, we go about our daily lives and everything else, but we don't think about a lot of things. And then next up is, like businessmen, and then there's artists, and then there's mystics, and then the farther up you go, the more uncomfortable it is. Just before the top, you get to a point where you either commit suicide or you go back down, or you break through into real enlightenment. But you have to take, at that point, total responsibility for consciousness. And that was kind of what I built that whole thing around. And sleep, by that, is the paradigm of not being conscious. So in order to be conscious, the most primal thing she had to do was stay awake. With some slasher films, I think it's just blood and guts and torture and things like that, which are pretty reliably upsetting, but I think kind of a cheat, you know. To me, it's much more about the social, economic, psychological zeitgeist of what's going on in the culture at the time. The veneer is much thinner than we like to think.
Well, with A Nightmare on Elm Street, you really touched a nerve. So where did that idea come from?
I think it was a combination of hearing somebody talking about having a dream that seemed so real that they could almost pull the person out of it, and constructing a character that was in some ways thought about very viscerally, in some ways thought about very intellectually. The intellectual part was, what is one of the earliest things I can think of as a weapon that would have terrified human beings? It would be pre-spear, pre-knife, pre-sharpened stone, to the claws that nature gives to its predators. The cave bear reaching around the corner with this massive mitt with daggers on the end of every finger, that's primal. You know, that's what we were running from for a million years, or however long it was, you know. And the man himself was based on a man who frightened me as a child, woke me from my sleep one night shambling down the sidewalk in Cleveland. And I got out of bed to see what it was, and I looked, and there was this guy dressed very much like I made Freddie dress like.
Really?
I think he was just a random drunk going down the sidewalk, but he had an uncanny ability somehow to realize this little kid was looking down on him from the second-story apartment window, and he just stopped, and then he just looked right up at me, and like that, you know. And I fell back and sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, and my whole family was, you know, asleep, and counted to, I don't know what, 1,000, you know, something I thought would. He certainly will go, but I haven't heard him go. But he must have gone. He can't be waiting. And I went back to the window, and he was waiting. He just like that, and then he turned and he walked down the sidewalk, looking at me, and he walked around the corner, and that's where the entrance to our building is. I ran to the front door of our apartment, and I heard the door to the street open, and I just. I went and pounded on my brother's door. He was 10 years older than I was, and there's a guy, he's coming for me, and my brother literally went down with a baseball bat, and the guy ran away. And it's a cogent, articulate, devious, clever, resourceful villain. It's not like just supernatural that he shows up someplace. Freddie figured it out, you know, and he kind of knew where you slept, and that kind of villain, I think, is always more frightening than this. So he's just really, really smart.
Well, dreams and nightmares are so potent anyway. I mean, they are our original movies. So the first movies we see are our dreams, right?
Don't fall asleep in there. You could drown, you know.
Oh, for Pete's sakes.
It happens all the time. I've heated up some warm milk for you, honey.
Warm milk?